Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Just waiting for Instagram to kick in. Starting a little early today. Still waiting for Chief. I still call him Chief Burgess, Mayor Burgess. But while we're waiting for the mayor to join us at 12, I'll get started with a little bit of what's going on this week. So, all of y'all, I'm sure, have been following the ongoing campus encampments and demonstrations up north. Um, some of them have verged on anti-Semitic. There's been a great deal of arrests taking place, and so far, at least here in Charleston, things have been relatively quiet. We haven't seen the kinds of demonstrations that we saw up north. I see your Mayor Burgess is in our studio. I'm going to add him to the stage in just 1 second. But his time is important, so we'll jump right in. Earlier this week, we were following the South Carolina Senate. We know that they have just one or two special order slots left. The hate crime bill that we've been advocating for over 4 years now, that's been stuck in the Senate for almost the entirety of that time, looks like it's getting ready to die again in the Senate. This week, the Senate chose to use their special order slot, or at least Senator Massey chose to use special order slot to take up gender affirming care ban in the state of South Carolina. So kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do here with the hate crimes bill. But luckily, even as the state has refused to act, we have seen a flood of municipalities around the state opt into passing local hate crime ordinance to address hate. And City of North Charleston is definitely one of them. And it's one of the reasons why I'm thrilled to have Mayor Burgess with us today. Just before I bring him onto the screen, I just want to share by way of history that I've been familiar with Mayor Burgess and Chief Burgess and Deputy Chief Burgess for years. And on this podcast or vlog, one of the things that we really talk about and value is intercommunal relationship building, being able to have and model civil dialogue, encourage civic participation, and Mayor Burgess, throughout his whole career, has been known as somebody that really embodies those principles. He's somebody that is well known throughout North Charleston community, has always built his reputation around dialogue with community leadership and stakeholders, and has been incredibly successful, partly or almost in whole because of that work that he does. So without further ado, Mayor Burgess, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, Brandon. It's a blessing to be alive, man. Thank God. Thank God. Yes.
Well, thanks for
Yes.
taking the time today.
Thank you.
I just saw you last night. The city of North Charleston gave hate intimidation ordinance or a bias-based intimidation ordinance first reading.
Yes.
We're very grateful to you all for taking up that charge.
Well,
Why? So, as the leader of a city in our state, and actually some people don't realize the third most populous city in the state of South Carolina, just behind Charleston and Columbia. I'm sure
yes.
y'all will leapfrog Columbia pretty soon here.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think it's important that cities pass these ordinances and that the state passes this law? And why is it one of the first things that you wanted to do as mayor?
Well, I truly believe in people, Brandon, and I thank you for allowing me to be on. But I truly believe in people, and all the 34 years that I put in working the streets. I walked in this building in 1989 as a rookie, and I was just going from call to call, and I was blessed to elevate my career. But in everything that I did in those 34 years, I look back over my career and I say to myself, everything I did was basically about the uplift of people, protecting people, stopping victimization, standing up for people. I would give my life, and even today, to protect somebody else's life. So if you really are a public servant, and you really truly are about the best for the public, then you need to think about how you can not only serve them, but make sure that there are state statutes or city ordinances or town laws or federal statutes that are going to protect people. And I don't have to be an African American to understand how valuable rights are. I'm just a human being, and I know that I have a son and have a daughter, and I do not want my children to actually go without laws and regulations that's going to protect them at all time. So the hate crime intimidation bill, I actually spoke when I was a chief of police to the folks that were in the legal department about that, and I said, listen, we need to get one. I was all in, and then we were working on it, but apparently there was other things that the legal department had to really dive into. And I can understand because they were already working on some things. They were trying to clean up some of the laws that were on the books that were actually outdated. Because if we keep charging people with those laws and they are illegal, that's not only there's not only a lawsuit, but that's not fair to the individual that we charge. So once I had an opportunity to run for mayor, I just said, man, that's going to be my responsibility. And I spoke with the city council folks, and they had no problem with it. They felt like we have to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves.
Well, we thank you. As you know, um, as chief in North Charleston, you invested a lot in nonprofit organizations and community organizations that were doing the work of responding to violence. And I think so much of what we're dealing with, we don't always get met halfway by the government. So, for example, hate crimes disproportionately are being addressed by nonprofits and churches and people who are victims of the hate crimes themselves. And, in a state like South Carolina, where you don't even have a law against hate crimes on the books. It feels like sometimes like we're not being met halfway. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing to meet all of us halfway, and not just on behalf of the Jewish community, but the LGBTQ community and the Black community. I mean, every minority community, the Muslim community, has seen a sharp rise in hate related crimes. So um, it's great to know that when you live in a city like of North Charleston, that your leaders are paying attention to a problem like this and doing what they
Yes.
can to address it.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, when I raised my hand in 1989 and took that oath as a cop, I lived by that. And when I raised my hand on January the 2nd of this year to become the mayor, I live by that. I have to be true to what I say and what I repeat on paper. And I'm a simple man. The thing that I hate, and I don't have any hate toward anybody, but the thing I dislike most is victimization. I really have a problem with victimization, because we choose to victimize somebody, and so that's why in my whole career and the remaining of my life, I will continue to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. I will.
Well, again, we really appreciate that, and to that point, one of the things I brought up right as we were just getting started has been that there have been these really explosive protests at Columbia University and Yale, a lot of the Ivy League schools up north. And then just yesterday, University of Texas in Emory, we saw some professors and students arrested at demonstrations against Israel, for Palestine. They're being described in a lot of different ways, but as somebody that was a chief and before that a deputy chief, during a time where there were huge protests going on in the city of North Charleston following the shooting of Walter Scott. How do you as a police department, as city leaders, strike the balance that you need between giving people much needed space to vent and to make their voices heard while keeping other people safe? How do you find that sweet spot?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you analyze it, correctly. Um, what we experience is our best teacher. That's experience is the best teacher for us in law enforcement. I'll say this: any law enforcement chief or sheriff in the United States of America right now, if they're not working, before crisis with their community leaders, civic club leaders, their community as a whole, if they're not working in those communities 24 hours, sitting down at the table, breaking bread, analyzing, and also acknowledging that that law enforcement has issues when crisis come, you're lost. You have to do the work before crisis. We are sworn as law enforcement officers to protect every individual's constitutional right, either if it's state or if it's federal. And you have a right in this nation to protest, but you have a right to protest peacefully. And that, so when you are talking to people and you see the protesting, the things I learned studying protesting and the things I learned by going through it is that people are angry for whatever reason. They're just like us. But how do we actually work with them to a point where we can actually get them to think about the overall safety of the place that they're protesting? So I know that protesters are going to negotiate. They're going to demonstrate, and if negotiations are going well, they can resist. So those are three factors that I've learned along the way. So what I would say is that you have to negotiate about whatever the issues are with people, and then you have to, keep in mind that they have a constitutional right, but you need to let them know at all times that you protect those rights as long as it's not violent. And I just believe that if you do a lot of work before the crisis begin, if you're with folks, if you got Brandon Fishers and you got Chase Young and you have Pastor Dixon's and you have Elder Johnson, you have Doc Scott and you have guys like Nelson Rivers. If you're talking to those people, Ed Bryant and all of them. If you're talking to those people, on a like a weekly basis, going to their events, they're coming to yours. You have them involved with the practices of law enforcement internally. Then, whenever a crisis shows up, they will in turn sell your department's mindset of we are not the enforcers. We want to keep the peace. So, if you ask me again, Brandon, you have to do your homework. You got to do the work before crisis comes.
That makes total sense. We live by the same principle here. We try to be almost all the time in proactive mode instead of in reactive mode, because if we're spending all of our time in reactive mode, we're always in a crisis situation, and we're never really prepared, and taking the best path forward that we kind of already lost as we were reacting to whatever the latest crisis is. These protests that have been happening on campuses have been disturbing to a lot of people because there are people within those protests that have taken things to an extreme. Whether it be harassing students and then you end up with physical altercations. You end up with people getting hurt, and a place where people don't feel safe to go to school. And I can always say that when there were protests going on in North Charleston, what you just said is really the case. I think that protest organizers knew Deputy Chief Burgess. They knew that when you told them what the lines were, that those were the lines, and that they could trust you, and you knew that you could trust them. And I think that that relationship piece of it managed to keep a lot of really dangerous things from happening, for anger from turning into destruction or violence. Here in Charleston, as part of my job, we've been in constant communication with folks who are activists for Free Palestine Charleston, with the city, and I really do credit these conversations and this relationship building with things that are happening in other places not happening here. Our city council chamber hasn't turned into a shouting match between people. People have been respectful of each other. Our local activist group hasn't done demonstrations in front of synagogues or in any place that's going to make the Jewish community feel unsafe. And we've tried to respect them as well. So, to that point, that general point, I always think relationship building is really responsible for a lot of things happening the right way. Speaking of which, I was just your successor, Chief Gomes, is retiring, and one of the things he said in an interview was, I think a lot of what I've done has been a continuation of what Chief Burgess did. I hope whoever comes after me continues to understand the value of relationships you have with community leaders in the city. Historically, we get so laser focused on enforcement and reducing crime, we do it at the expense of the relationships with the community. It's important for whoever takes over to understand that there's a balance there. You have to find the balance between these two things, and ultimately it comes through communication. You're having a problem in a neighborhood, you go and let them know, hey, here's the problem. Here's what we're thinking we're going to do. If you explain it to them, you get buy-in. Historically, if we had an issue, these people would just see all these police descend on their community. There was no conversation. And that's something that's changed, and that's important, really important. The next person does. So speaking to that point, how you grew up and your experiences in the city of North Charleston play into your decision to take the North Charleston Police Department and the city of North Charleston in that direction towards relationship building, community buy-in, dialogue, as a solution to so many of the problems that the city was facing.
Wow. I always believed in community policing. I believed in the model. I believed in what the model was trying to accomplish. But it's so strange, and I actually didn't know this until to 2022, I believe it was, that out the Criminal Justice Academy really did not really focus a kind of learning apparatus on community policing, and I think it's kind of started about 3 or 4 years ago. And I walked in the doors in 1980s. I mean, I'm an 80 and 90s and 2000 person, and I always thought that the Criminal Justice Academy did a nice block, like a week block of community policing. I thought that they did, but when I talked to some of my training folks, they had just really started it probably like 3 years ago, where they were doing a whole block. They would kind of talk about it within a lesson plan, but wasn't like a whole like 2 or 3 days or even a week. We would go to the criminal domestics house down at the academy when we're going to our entry level, and we would spend like a week out there. Which was helpful because it helped us to get kind of to gain some kind of advantage of how we would handle the domestic situation, which is good. But if you look at law enforcement and you look at the history of law enforcement, it's the issues have been relationships with the community, and it's not only black and brown communities; it's Caucasian communities too. Because in this day and time, law enforcement they're really treated differently by all communities. If you look at the protests, and I'm pretty sure you were there during the pandemic time, during the George Floyd time, you look at all of the people that were walking and marching and protesting throughout the nation and abroad, out in other countries, the majority of those people were Caucasians. I mean, Caucasian people were all over protests because they, in this day and time, unlike me, when I was coming up in elementary, I was going to all black Head Starts, all black kindergartens, all black elementaries until I went to fifth grade. And we integrated Berry Elementary. And so fifth, sixth, and seventh is where I was more integrated. And I truly believe that because the schools are more integrated, the workforces are integrated, the churches are integrated. Integration actually kind of gave people who normally wouldn't even talk to each other, black, brown, or white, gave them the access to really understand each person, the individual. So what I see is this: it's like Greg is 100% right. And I said this earlier: if you are a law enforcement leader in this nation and you are still acting like you are Bull Connor in Birmingham, Alabama, you have problems. You've got problems. And I'm telling you, the way that you work with your citizens will dictate how well or how bad situations are going to be for your department. If you are considered the enemy in the city that you are serving and protecting, you cannot serve them, and they do not want your protection. And if they don't want your protection, then are going to do whatever they want to do, however they want to do, and you will not gain any advantage of doing your job. So Greg is 100% right. And you had a person that ran for office, and that person said we need to go back to zero tolerance. Well, let me tell you what zero tolerance did to the city of North Charleston. And Brandon, zero tolerance we were going out in neighborhoods without engaging the community leaders, without engaging the community. We just saw the crime stats and said, this is what we're going to do. No buy-in, no input from the community, nobody at the table with us. We feel like we know what's best. Well, I used to live on Union Heights. I used to live in Horizon Village. I used to live on Liberty Hill. I don't live there as a resident staying in the community, even though I visit them. If I'm going to work in a community, doesn't matter what color, I think I need to sit down and talk to the people in the community so they can help lead, guide, and direct me on what they think need to be done in their community to bring peace. So what happened with that zero tolerance? That zero tolerance was we would saturate every community when we had a shooting. We would saturate every community when we had a homicide. We would be there every day. And if you know, like I know, if you don't give clear, this clear minds, if you don't open up the minds of these officers, and you don't give them clear direction of what is expected of them, how you want them to go out and be community minded, how you want them to go out and make it safe. If you don't give that to them and you allow them to do it, they're going to make it up as they go. And what they're going to do, they're going to profile people. They're going to stop people just because they saw something. They're going to actually get up with people for no reason. Why? Why I'm saying that? Because I'm a cop and we did it. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I learned. So Brandon, what we're about is that zero tolerance led us up to April the 4th, 2015. Walter Scott being brutally murdered for no reason by an officer because he was given that mindset of it's our way and not your way. And that doesn't work in law enforcement anymore. It may work back in the day, but those days are over with.
Well, that's a lot, and the city of North Charleston has certainly made a lot of changes with in the police department post April 4th, and you were a big part of that. One of the things that I think really captivates me about you and your story, and I think a lot of people in our community who are familiar with you is your history in the city, your connections with the people of the city of North Charleston, um, your family's role in the city of North Charleston, and your decision to spend I think it's 30 years in the police department, and now service as the mayor of the city. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to get into public service, because it's a big decision to make, and how your upbringing in North Charleston drove you to want to serve the public.
Well, I got into it, Brandon, the public service sector. When you're in law enforcement, you are a servant, and I really enjoyed being a servant. I love when I can save the day. I love when I can stop the victimization. I love it when families say, "Thank you, we appreciate it." And that's big for me. But working in those 34 years as a cop, like I told you, I came in the 80s. I worked in the 90s and the 2000s, and I saw so much happening in our community. And I said, my number one reason to come in '89 was I saw social decay. I saw social decay creep in my community that I grew up in, and I was like, "What happened?" And then that's when I started talking to some of my homeboys, and they were telling me, "Hey, man, drugs is crazy out here, man. I mean, these folks are hooked on drugs." But I didn't look at just the drug, addiction. I looked at what were the actual core causes to it, and then I realized that people they didn't have the jobs that they used to have anymore. They couldn't provide for the families, or the children lived in homes that were, in the lower economic structure. And if a child has to eat and has to live, if you don't give them proper avenue to walk down and say this is the right thing to do, then that child's going to find his own way, his or her own way. And I realize that there's other issues that goes with that. So being a cop, I've always tried to help the individual to see the true picture and tell them, listen, you can look at me, living on two projects, in my lifetime, living in all black neighborhoods in my lifetime, and it wasn't easy for me. But if I can actually keep my head to the sky and leaning on God's, His vision, then you can do it yourself. Because if I can get to this point, you can go further than I have. So when I retired as a chief in May, I was in April when I launched my candidacy. Man, I was all in because I knew if I became the mayor, now I could really do more work holistically. I can do more because if you were chief of police, you're a department head, one of out of 19. So your area is only really law enforcement. I want to be involved with everything because I want to impact people's lives in a way that I know that I can reach out and touch them and don't have to worry about, well, that's not my division, that's not my area. And then the ultimate thing with my family is that, I come from a strong family. I come from a family that not only loves me, but always supported me. My moms and my father was my hero, man. By law, he's my stepdad, but he is the only man that ever loved me and ever took care of me. And then you look at the number one thing in my life, my wife, and we grew up together. We met each other back when I, in third grade, and we started dating in high school. And she's been my rock. She's been the one when I needed, somebody. She always stood up for me. When I made my mistakes, she always helped me to brush my knees off and get back up. And then she gave me the two things in my life that I thank God for every day. It's my son and my daughter. So, I'm grounded, but I'm grounded, Brandon. I am grounded in communities that some people would say, ooh, wow, you live there? Or you from that area? Yeah. Because everything that I got from Union Heights, everything that I learned on the Daniel Jenkins projects, everything that I went through in George Degree, and everything that I gained in Liberty Hill made me who I am. I am a part of every community that I lived in. I'm a part of that. So that's why I don't have time to sit back and judge people. That's why I don't have time to sit back and say, oh, I'm not doing this because it's not worth it. I've been in communities and people didn't have nothing and they made things happen because they believed in themselves and their families.
Well, I know that that you certainly bring that spirit of community with you to the work that you do, and it's one of the things that I think really captivates people about you, and drives them to really believe in you. And I think one of the reasons why you had such an overwhelming victory in an election where there is no party, and there were a bunch of candidates running for mayor.
Yeah.
But since you become mayor, um, obviously that's a big transition in some ways from being the chief of police and law enforcement to running everything else in the city. What have been, would you say, the things that you're most proud of that you've done so far, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you've been facing?
Wow. I think the things that I have worked on, and that's working toward accomplishment is my three platforms of public safety, improve infrastructure, and quality of life. Well, public safety will always be number one. I'm a cop. I'm always going to be a cop, and I love law enforcement. But I wanted law enforcement to love everybody as well. I wanted law enforcement to love every community, every citizen, and treat them the same. And I'm proud that even though it's Greg is retiring, and love that cat. I love that kid so much, but he has a life that he has to live. He's been in for 30 years. I love that our department is no longer looked at as that dirty department. It's not only not looked at as, oh, suspect department. You see so many activists and community leaders that who would have said that we were no good. They are working with us on a daily basis. We're helping them to get funding sources so they can do more to help change conditions in our communities. And then I look at affordable housing, which is big. See, I lived on affordable housing when I lived in the projects, and I know how it helped my mother to gain foot under her, where she can stand on her own. And when my father came in her life, in our lives, we were able to move off because we had actually established things in ourselves, because we realized that we wanted more. And when you want more, you're going to work hard to get more, or you're going to just give up. And we did not give up. So I love that we're working on affordable housing and attainable housing and senior homes, so that people who aspire like my mother did back in the early 70s to lift themselves up and brush themselves off and say, hey, I want to live better. And also too, what I really love that we're doing is we're engaging the food stores, the major marketed food stores. We've already had meetings with one. We already have a meeting with another one with another company, and we get ready to meet with two to three others. We just got to schedule them where we can kind of get some time, and they are really, really happy, or really, really impressed, because what I do, Brandon, I do not go and sit to the table with these food stores because of our food deserts. I don't sit down with them myself in the food stores. What I do, I bring the businesses in, the food stores, me as the government, our government officials, and I bring the communities leaders in. When I meet with them, Union Heights Civic Club presidents there, Whopper Barony Civic Club presidents there, the Ackerby president's there, Shakur Cherokee president's there, and the Wayland and Terrace. When I meet with them, I'm meeting with them with the people who matters, the people that's going to go through those doors. So I'm again proud of that. Now, the things that we were trying to do more, I met with U.S. Representative Clyburn on yesterday, and he came into my office and we had a real good sit down. And he basically just told me to tell him what would be some of the things that I would like to have to improve the conditions in North Charleston. And those things I just mentioned, and I told him some other things as well. And we had a great meeting. He told me what I need to do. I was up in Columbia in January, sat down and met with Governor McMaster's, and he did the same thing. He told me, "Hey, how can I help you, Mayor?" And I told him, and we've already working on some things like the sound barrier up on off of Northwoods and Deer Park, and even we're looking at Midland Park. I talked to him about the TIF area, which is on the Naval Yard. We have to actually increase that area so that we can actually have a better balance when it comes to revenue streams for the city when we start developing that area. So there's a lot of things that's happening. So all things is that's starting up, but we've got to keep pressing on. We got to keep grinding. We got to keep working every day for the betterment of the citizens of North Charleston.
Well, that's a lot of accomplishments in a short period of time, and I think we're all definitely seeing those things in action. What do you think? Obviously, North Charleston's changed a lot in the past, shoot, 10, 15 years. It's one of the largest cities in the states by population. It's the economic engine of this state in so many ways. We've seen Park Circle develop a lot of changes in both the demographics, but also what's available, the resources available in the city. Um, with all those changes that have happened, where do you see what does North Charleston look like in 5 or 10 years from now if Mayor Reggie Burgess gets everything that you want? What in a perfect world, what does North Charleston look like in 5 or 10 years?
Well, I think it's going to be a crossover because it's going to be like we are the economic engine for the state. I mean, we all it. If you want to fly to Charleston County area, you got to fly in North Charleston. If you want to catch the train, you got to board it or get off at North Charleston. A bus as well. We are the only city in the world that manufactures high-end airplanes, which is Boeing, high-end cars, Mercedes. So, and not to mention, we have the Air Force Base where the C-17s, that's their home base. We have joint base here. We've got so many amenities, Top Golf and Tanger and everything. And then we have all the community amenities as well. So what I see is that we're going to cross over somewhat where you're going to see, like in Columbia, the base for them is the legislature. You're talking about the governor's office and the state legislature and the General Assembly. I think that North Charleston is going to be that place where the leaders of the state are going to say, "Hey, this is a model city. This is how you build a city up as a small city, and you strategically build it up, and not to the point where it's unmanageable. Because if you notice, North Charleston, we have two ways of doing things here. When you talk about growth, and I'm saying responsible growth, two ways to do it. We can go out or we can go up. Some cities can only go up. So we can go out and we can go up. So you're going to start seeing more condominium style homes, and you're going to see your traditional single family homes and apartment complexes. And then also you're going to look at us as City of Charleston. You're going to see a lot of people fly into North Charleston to come to the performing arts, come to the Coliseum, Convention Center, and other amenities that we're working on. And it's almost like a one-stop shop for us. I mean, folks can just fly here, see a show somewhere in Miami, because you can fly to Miami, straight flight and back, and they can come in and see a show, and this show may be a whole lot cheaper. And if you come from Miami to here, you can actually get a nice new hotel room that's just built, because we're building 2 to 3 more right by Tanger, and you'll be comfortable in the Embassy Suites. They're actually doing their business, and then not to mention what you can and really enjoy at the Riverfront Park. When I spoke to Tom, who actually did the event last weekend, he told me, he said, "Man, what really is different than anything else, all the venues he's experienced." I said, "What's that?" I'm thinking he's going to say money, or he's going to say like hotels or something else. He says, "No, the ships." I said, "Ships?" He pointed. There was a big shipping barge right on the Cooper River, and he was like, "You never get this any other place that they've traveled." He said, "When people see that, they stop looking at the entertainers and look at the ships go by." So North Charleston is on the up and uptick to becoming that. I've heard people tell me between 2025 and 2028, we're going to possibly be between 200 and probably 250,000 people, living here, because we have all the amenities and all the jobs, and we have the area where you can actually spread your wing, and you're not really tight, and you're not really kind of like closed in. You can really do a lot of things and get around and enjoy, everything in North Charleston. Yes.
Well, before we did this interview, I asked you to text me if there was anything that I shouldn't bring up. So I didn't get a text from you, so I'm going to bring this up.
Yeah.
I was I was at the public safety committee meeting a couple of weeks ago in support of the hate intimidation ordinance. And when I walked in, the whole room was packed. You couldn't even sit down. And I was thinking to myself, are all these people here to support the hate crimes ordinance? And that wasn't the number one thing on the agenda. There was, to your point about responsible growth. There's a property in North Charleston, a beautiful piece of property right on the Ashley River. I understand, and it's going to become a park. And there's a debate about whether how to responsibly develop that park, whether some of it should be a boat manufacturer that would pay for a lot of the cleanup required, or whether it should be completely the whole property a park and not be rezoned for this boat manufacturer. And it seems like it's been a really contentious issue based on just the number of people that showed up. But I think I noticed in the room that people on council seemed very surprised that so many people from the community showed up to say that we would rather this all just be a park. And it seemed like there was a lot of confusion. Do you have a general position on this issue, and or insight into what's behind this issue? It seemed like there were a lot of people paying really close attention to it.
Yeah. For me, it's just simple. I wasn't here. I got into my seat for the city January 3rd. I started my first day. So what happened before me is behind me, and what I see is that I lived there. I lived there, as I said, Daniel Jenkins Projects. That's where it was at. The projects was there. I lived there, and I remembered my mother. I always would walk around and kind of venture out. And I was around about 4 or 5, and me and my cousins and friends. And I remember we would have like those sticks, and we always like emulated like Robin Hood and things of that nature. And I remember we would look, and I could see the water, and I was like, "Wow, look at that! That's the ocean out there." And then the grown folks will be out in the back porch, and they say, "Hey, don't y'all go back there, because that's the Ashley River." And it's like, "Oh, okay." So we never went there, but I always remembered at 4 or 5 that the smell and the vision of how it looked. I was like, wow, that's pretty. You can see like the marsh, but you can clearly see the water where we were at. So I've always known that we had access there, and when I found out that they had rezoned it, which to R1, which is residential use, I was really elated, because I said, okay, man, we can do so much there in that area. But at the time, before I became the mayor, before I got sworn in, I didn't know that the Parks and Recreation for the Charleston County had actually worked something out with the company that's trying to build. I don't have anything against the company. I don't even know them at all personally. And even if I did, I'm not. I'm a God fearing man. I don't have time to have drama about who I like or I don't like. The thing about it is, I'm looking at what's best for us. Too many times, too many situations, Brandon, that the southern part of the city, where that we would speak about it. Oh, but we don't have any pools down there. We don't. If you go from Durant and Rivers all the way down to Union Heights, and all those communities, the Wayland, the Terrace, Bennett Yard, Sequoia, Cherokee, Union Heights, Howard Heights, Windsor Place, all those areas down there, and even Horizon Village, all those places down there, there's no pool, none, no pool down there, and no access to water at all. And then when you look at a place where the city can call itself having a place where we can have family reunions, like we can have build a couple of enclosures, or just places where you have like a roof above it, so you can have family reunions, and you can put playground equipment out there, and you can actually build some docks out there where you can actually have people doing ride on sea-doos and canoes and kayaks and enjoying the West Ashley area from the other side, but in the Cooper River on North Charleston side. The boat landing that's off the Mark Clark, that's exactly what it is. A boat landing. It's not a public park. It's not an area where people, families can enjoy it. So all I'm trying to do is look out for the best interests of the people. So that's all. I don't have no issue with the builder, none of that. I look at it as something that we can use, because we need to stop ignoring. We need to stop making excuses. We need to stop just talking about it, about the southern part of the city. Let's make it happen. This is an opportunity. This is a time. We'll work with the Charleston County Parks and Recreation in any way we can to actually, or if we have to clean it up or whatever, clean it up. There's no problem. But at the end of the day, we want to open those gates, cut the ribbon. Charleston County Parks, Charleston County Council, myself, City Council of North Charleston, open the ribbon and let the people get in that part, and let the people enjoy what I believe is theirs to enjoy.
Well, I really look forward to seeing that day. I spent a lot of time in that area, and my grandparents growing up lived in West Pawnee and West Ashley, and now recently, right on the other side of the Ashley River in West Ashley near Northbridge, they have this little park. And even though it's a little sliver of a park, they've got a dock. People can go out there and enjoy the river. People park there at lunchtime, take their lunch, looking at the river. I used to take my grandfather out there who had Alzheimer's, but he would get up to that river and he would just be at peace. Love it.
Yes.
And so it really struck me when people were speaking at this meeting, which an issue I hadn't really heard about how important it is for people in that community to have access to the river. Water is the source of life.
Yes.
Also, I just want to, I talked about it in my last podcast, but I want to give a special shout out to AJ Davis. I know he's going through some health challenges, and encourage folks to help out any way that you can. Is he still the president of Chicora Cherokee?
Yes, he is. And
Wow.
AJ is one of those guys. He's community first, and you're right. We've got to pray for him, pray for his family. He's a young guy like you are, and this is a time that when you really truly say that you are a friend or even an associate, this is a time that you got to get on your knees and say, hey, whoever you worship, please help this young man. Please help see him through, because he's strong, but we need to help him to be even stronger.
Absolutely. And for folks who are watching, who are Jewish, who are going to synagogue this weekend, go ahead and put AJ Davis on the Refuah Shlema list, the Mishnah Bear. We have a list of people we pray for who for their complete recovery. And I would encourage folks to do that. AJ is one of those people like yourself. And if I would be lucky to be counted among this group as well, of people that have been around for a while and are 100% of the time, people like AJ are standing for on the right side of an issue, authentically rooted in community and what's good for people. And we don't have enough of those people in the world. And so we got to hold on to the ones we do have, because all of these relationships, they move mountains. All these relationships that you built, that we continue to build. I think one of the things that's really connected us and you to the Jewish community is this faith connection.
Yes.
We're people of faith. Yes. You're a person of deep faith.
Yes.
If I'm not, do you go to Charity Missionary Baptist Church?
No, Royal
This
Baptist.
is
Royal
wrong.
Baptist. Yep, yep. Yeah, I go to all the churches, so you may see me at Charity or St. Peter's and any church, man. I just go wherever the Spirit leads me. Yes.
Is that where you had your inauguration?
Yeah, I had no. Matter of
No, no,
fact,
no.
no.
Yeah, is
Um,
it the North
yeah,
Charleston?
yeah. Before now, we were going to do it at Royal, but the only reason why we didn't do it because I didn't want the other churches to think that Royal got something over there. So I said, stick it to the convention center. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I was there for that inauguration, and I got to tell you that it was a powerful evening. I
Yes,
mean, standing room only, must have
yes,
been 1,000 people
yes,
there.
yes.
Um,
Yeah.
North Charleston is definitely proud to have you as mayor.
Thank you.
Um, I just am grateful for your ongoing friendship with the Jewish community.
Yes,
Whenever we have programs, you make it a point to be there, even if it's not
yes,
within the city of North Charleston. And certainly, North Charleston is one of the fastest growing parts of our Jewish community as well.
yes,
And
yes.
um, we're lucky to have your friendship, and we appreciate your work, especially on this hate crime ordinance.
Yes.
Before I let you go, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would want to say?
No, I really want to thank you, Brandon, and the Jewish Federation for your support. I mean, you guys have supported me for decades, and like I said, I remember meeting with Ms. Zucker in 2018, and she told me about the anti-Semitism and how she felt. This was 2018, and it wasn't that I didn't see it because being law enforcement, I saw a lot of things, but I had to put myself in her position because I'm looking at things from a law enforcement side. It's okay. What reports have we? Who we think it is. But she was actually showing me and getting me to get a good feel of things that sometimes we just don't pay attention to. And when she talked to me that day, and her and Jonathan, I mean my ears and my eyes opened even wider, and I started to see and hear the things that she was talking about. And guess what? Look where we're at right now. I mean, think about it. She sensed it back then, and she told me then how she felt, and she told me the signs. She told me the little things that saw on television, the little mixtures of people conversations that people were having, and now it has come to pass that that's exactly what's going on. So I want to thank you, and the Jewish Federation for allowing me to be a part, but allow me to be myself to see what I need to see and hear what I need to hear so I can evaluate it in a proper way and be able to provide whatever I need to provide so we can make sure that we do not allow victimization to come to the Jewish people or any people, that's going to be victimized.
Absolutely. Well, again, we really appreciate you, and thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, wow, a lot to digest from Mayor Burgess. We got to talk about a lot of subjects, but key among them, hate intimidation ordinance. So, if you would like to show up, show your support, come to the next North Charleston City Council meeting. I think it's going to be May the 9th, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that. You've got to sign up, as I learned this past council meeting, the day of before 12 by calling the clerk to speak in support of the ordinance. We saw first reading last night pass unanimously. However, as we witnessed in Somerville just a couple weeks back, just because something passes unanimously first reading doesn't mean that folks can't mobilize against it. In Somerville, the folks who mobilized against it were the same folks trying to ban books at Dorchester District 2. And they created such a stir that council in Somerville ultimately postponed second reading of the ordinance. So it's important that we show up and show support and not just show up when we're against something that our elected officials are doing. So I'd encourage you to do that. Also, we've got just 2 weeks left of the legislative session. Really, essentially, we only have a few days left to debate in the Senate. Coming up next week, they've given the special order slot again to this anti-trans bill, which don't get me started on, but making the deliberate choice to put that bill up for special order as opposed to the hate crimes bill, which we've been waiting 4 years to pass. We're one of only 2 states without one, without a law. It's incredibly frustrating. And I would encourage folks to avail themselves of the opportunity to get in touch with your senators, let them know that you want a hate crimes bill to finally be voted on in the Senate. Deserves a vote. It's passed the House twice in the past two-year sessions, and it passed in a bipartisan fashion. Shouldn't be anything holding it up. So please, if you can, I'm going to go ahead and put up this little banner here. Go to bit.ly/stampout-hate to get in touch with your senators. If you want to contribute to any of this bridge building and advocacy work that we're doing here at the Charleston Jewish Federation, go to jewishcharleston.org/give. Any questions, email me. Make sure you're registered to vote. You may not think there's an important election coming up, but there is. And I'll tell you what, not only in November will we be having the presidential election and a number of other federal elections, but even before then, there are going to be primaries for local and municipal offices. There are primaries for a lot of our South Carolina House and Senate seats. There are a lot of crazy people running. So it's important to pay attention, research the few folks in your district. If you have any questions about how to do that, you can reach out to me. We'll continue to keep y'all updated from the Charleston Jewish Federation perspective. And last but not least, would encourage everybody, especially those of you in the Jewish community, to sign up to attend our 2024 Yom HaShoah program. Every year we get together as a community to commemorate the lives lost in the Shoah, the Holocaust, particularly those lost whose family live in Charleston. My family's among those people, and certainly here, but for the grace of God, go I. My grandmother fled Nazi Europe and came to Canada by the skin of her teeth. Almost all of the kids that she went to school with at Jewish school were murdered in the Shoah. Anyway, I'm going to create a banner here so that y'all can register for that. Reason I am suggesting you register is because registration is required because of security reasons. Obviously, it's going to be a great program this year. Dr. Chad Gibbs is going to speak about the legacy of resistance. It's going to be an excellent program. If you've never heard him speak, you are missing out, and it's going to be a moving program. So make sure you come out. That's the link, and continue to have a great Passover if you're observing, and Shabbat Shalom. And for my friends outside of the Jewish community, hope you have a great weekend. L'Shalom, to peace. We continue to watch what's unfolding in Israel and around the country, and I think we all universally are praying for a peaceful resolution, and I'm sure everybody can agree on that, and I join you in that, and yeah, get involved, get out, get involved. We're here. Have a great weekend.